Have you ever loved someone so deeply that you watch them disappear right before your eyes? Not physically, but piece by piece, as they slowly stopped caring for themselves, stopped seeing their own worth? This is the story of how one woman lost herself in the grind of survival, and how a dangerous man helped her remember who she truly was. The fluorescent lights of Romano Financial buzzed overhead as Simone Baptiste checked her watch for the third time in 5 minutes. 10:47 in the evening. Again. She rubbed her temples, staring at the spreadsheet that had held her hostage for the past 14 hours. The numbers swam before her eyes, blurring into meaningless columns of data. Her stomach growled, reminding her that she had skipped lunch. And breakfast. Actually, now that she thought about it, when was the last time she had eaten a real meal? Yesterday's energy bar did not count. Neither did the 3 cups of coffee she had consumed since noon. Simone stood up from her desk, wincing as her knees popped and her lower back protested. At 28 years old, she should not feel like she was pushing 60. She caught her reflection in the darkened window of the conference room and barely recognized the woman staring back. Her natural curls, which she used to take such pride in maintaining, were pulled back into a messy bun that had started neat 12 hours ago. Her skin looked dull, lacking the glow it used to have. The tailored blazer she wore hung loosely on her frame, at least one size too large now. Most tellingly, the red dress she kept in her office closet, the one she had bought 6 months ago for a date that never happened, would not zip up anymore. Not because she had gained weight, but because her body had changed shape from stress, from skipping meals, from forgetting that she was more than just her work. "Miss Baptiste?" The security guard's voice made her jump. "You are still here? You need to leave soon." "Building closes at midnight." "I know, Gerald. Just finishing up." That was a lie. She was never just finishing up. There was always one more report, one more analysis, one more fire to put out. Ever since her promotion to senior financial analyst 6 months ago, work had consumed everything. She told herself it was temporary, that once she proved herself in this role, things would calm down. But they never did. The workload only increased, and somewhere along the way she had stopped taking care of herself. Her phone buzzed. Another email from her boss, sent at 10:50 in the evening like it was perfectly normal. Simone felt something inside her crack, just a little bit more. She grabbed her purse and her laptop bag, both heavy enough to cause permanent shoulder damage, and headed for the elevators. The building was in the financial district of downtown Chicago, where the streets were empty after dark, except for the occasional cab or delivery driver. As Simone pushed through the revolving door, the October wind hit her like a slap. She had forgotten her coat. Again. It was hanging on the back of her office chair, where it had been for the past week. She wrapped her arms around herself and started walking toward the train station 6 blocks away. Halfway there, she realized she had missed the last express train. The next one would not arrive for another 40 minutes. Simone stood on the platform, shivering, wondering how her life had become this collection of missed meals, missed trains, missed moments. When had she stopped mattering to herself? "You look like you could use this." The voice came from behind her, smooth and deep, with just a hint of an Italian accent. Simone turned to find a man standing a respectful distance away, holding out a paper cup of coffee. Not the cheap station kind, but something from an actual cafe, steam still rising from the small opening in the lid. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with dark hair that was perfectly styled despite the late hour. His coat was charcoal gray and looked like it cost more than her monthly rent. Everything about him screamed money and power, from his Italian leather shoes to the watch on his wrist that she recognized as a Patek Philippe, but it was his eyes that caught her attention, dark brown, almost black, and looking at her with an intensity that made her feel seen in a way she had not felt in months. "I don't accept drinks from strangers," Simone said automatically, even though her cold fingers ached to wrap around the warmth of that cup. "My name is Leonardo Castellano," he said, not withdrawing the offer. "Now we are not strangers." "That is not how that works." "No?" A slight smile played at his lips. "Then how does it work, Miss Baptiste?" Her blood went cold. "How do you know my name?" "Your badge is still clipped to your blazer." Simone looked down. He was right. She had forgotten to take it off, along with forgetting her coat and forgetting to eat and forgetting to be a human being instead of just a machine that produced financial reports. "The coffee is just coffee," Leonardo continued, "from Café Lucia, 2 blocks from here. Black because I'm guessing you do not have time for complicated orders. I bought it for myself 10 minutes ago, but I have not touched it. The seal is still intact, see?" He tilted the cup so she could see the sticker across the lid was unbroken. Simone's resistance crumbled under the weight of her exhaustion. She took the coffee. Thank you. When did you last eat? The question was so unexpected, so direct that she answered honestly. I don't remember. Something dark flashed in Leonardo's eyes. That is unacceptable. Excuse me? There is a restaurant 3 blocks from here, Salvatore's. They know me. They will still be serving. It was not quite an order, but it was not quite a request either. I don't know you, Simone said, but there was less conviction in her voice now. The coffee was warming her hands, and the thought of actual food made her stomach clench with sudden, desperate hunger. Then get to know me over dinner, or at least over food that you desperately need. Leonardo's expression softened slightly. I'm not asking for anything except to make sure you eat something before you collapse on this train platform. I'm not going to collapse. You're shaking, and not just from the cold. He was right. She was shaking. Simone could not remember the last time someone had noticed anything about her beyond her ability to produce financial projections and meet impossible deadlines. Why do you care? She asked, genuinely curious. Leonardo was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Because I recognize the look of someone who is disappearing, and I think that would be a terrible loss. Something about his words, about the way he said them without pity or judgment, just simple observation, made Simone's throat tighten. She blinked rapidly, refusing to cry in front of this stranger, this perfectly put-together man who somehow saw what no one else had noticed. 1 meal, she heard herself say, and then I go home. 1 meal, Leonardo agreed. That is all I'm asking. They walked the 3 blocks in silence, Simone clutching her coffee like a lifeline, Leonardo keeping pace beside her without crowding her space. Salvatore's turned out to be a small, elegant Italian restaurant tucked between 2 larger buildings. The kind of place she would never have found on her own, never would have thought to enter even if she had. A man in his 60s looked up from behind the host stand as they entered. His face broke into a genuine smile. Mr. Castellano, we did not expect you tonight. Ciao, Salvatore. I know it is late, but could you accommodate 2 for dinner? For you? Always. Salvatore's gaze shifted to Simone, and she saw his expression change subtly, becoming warmer, almost paternal. Welcome, signorina. Please, come this way. He led them to a corner table away from the few remaining diners. A waiter appeared immediately with menus and water, along with a basket of bread that smelled like heaven. Simone's hand moved toward it before she could stop herself. Eat, Leonardo said simply, pushing the basket closer to her. She took a piece, then another, not caring how it looked, not caring about anything except the sudden, overwhelming need to put food in her body. The bread was still warm, with olive oil and herbs baked into the crust. It was the most delicious thing she had tasted in months, probably because she had been running on caffeine and stress for so long that her taste buds had forgotten what real food was. Leonardo did not say anything, just watched her with those dark, intense eyes. When the waiter returned, he ordered for both of them in rapid Italian, a string of dishes that Simone did not catch but trusted would be good if the bread was any indication. So, she said, after draining her entire glass of water and immediately, receiving a refill, what do you do, Mr. Castellano? I manage investments, import, export, various business interests. It was the kind of vague answer that meant he was either very important or very private, possibly both. And you just hang around train stations offering coffee to strangers? I was at a meeting nearby. I saw you through the window of Cafe Lucia when I was buying coffee. You looked. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Lost, like you needed someone to see you. You do not even know me. No, Leonardo agreed, but I know what it looks like when someone is grinding themselves down to nothing. I know what it looks like when a person stops taking care of themselves because everything else seems more important. Are you a psychologist in addition to your investment work? I am someone who pays attention. He leaned back as the waiter arrived with their first course, a beautiful caprese salad with tomatoes that looked vine-ripened despite the season. Tell me about your dress? Simone froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. What? Earlier, before I offered you the coffee, I watched you through the window of your office building. You were standing in front of a closet holding a red dress. You looked at it the way someone looks at a ghost. A chill ran down her spine. You were watching me? That is creepy. I was walking past. The conference room windows are transparent, and you are deflecting. Leonardo's voice was gentle but firm. Tell me about the dress. Simone set down her fork. Part of her wanted to get up and leave, to escape this strange, intense man who saw too much. But another part of her, the part that was exhausted and lonely and desperate to be seen, wanted to tell him everything. I bought it 6 months ago, she said quietly, for a date. But the date got canceled because I had to work late, and then I got promoted, and then I just kept working, and now the dress does not fit anymore. Not because I gained weight, but because I lost it. Because I forgot to eat and forgot to sleep and forgot to be a person instead of just a job title. And tonight you tried it on again? I do not know why. Maybe I wanted to see how bad it had gotten, or maybe I wanted to remember who I used to be. Simone's voice cracked slightly. I used to care about things like dresses and dates and having a life outside of spreadsheets. Now I cannot remember the last time I did something just because it made me happy. Leonardo was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke, his voice was low and serious. When did you stop being enough for yourself, Simone? The use of her first name, the directness of the question, broke something loose inside her. She felt tears prick at her eyes, but refused to let them fall. Not here, not in front of this stranger who somehow understood what everyone else in her life had missed. I did not mean for it to happen, she whispered. I just wanted to prove myself, to show them. I deserved the promotion. But the goalposts kept moving, and suddenly months had passed, and I realized I did not recognize myself anymore. Do you want to know what I see when I look at you? Simone met his gaze. What? I see someone brilliant who has been convinced that her worth is measured only by her productivity. I see someone beautiful who has forgotten how to see her own beauty because she is too exhausted to look in the mirror. I see someone strong who has been made to feel weak because she has natural human needs like food and rest and joy. Leonardo's words were measured, each one landing with careful precision. I see someone who deserves better than what she has been accepting. You do not know me, Simone said, but the words lacked conviction. Then let me know you, starting with making sure you eat this entire meal. The food arrived then, dish after dish of authentic Italian cuisine that made Simone's mouth water, pasta with a cream sauce that tasted like heaven, chicken that practically melted off the bone, vegetables roasted with herbs and garlic. Leonardo watched her eat with quiet satisfaction, occasionally adding food to her plate when she slowed down. Why are you doing this? Simone asked between bites. You do not owe me anything. We just met. Because 6 months ago, I was you, Leonardo said simply. I was working myself into an early grave, convinced that if I just pushed a little harder, proved myself a little more, everything would be worth it. And then I collapsed. Actually collapsed, in my office, from exhaustion and malnutrition and stress. Simone set down her fork. What happened? I spent 3 days in the hospital. The doctors told me I was lucky I did not have a heart attack. I was 34 years old and lucky to not have had a heart attack. He shook his head. When I got out, I had to completely rebuild my relationship with work, with myself. I had to remember that I am a human being, not a machine. And now? Now I work because I choose to, not because I have forgotten how to do anything else. Now I eat 3 meals a day, I sleep 7 hours a night, and I do not check my email after 9 in the evening unless it is a genuine emergency. Leonardo's smile was slightly rueful. And now I pay attention when I see someone else making the same mistakes I did. So this is what? Some kind of intervention? This is one person who understands telling another person who needs to hear it that she deserves better. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. They talked through the rest of the meal, conversation flowing easier than it had any right to between two strangers. Leonardo told her about growing up in Italy, about moving to Chicago 10 years ago, about building his business from nothing. Simone found herself talking about her own journey, about being a Black woman in finance, about the pressure to be twice as good to be considered half as competent, about losing herself in the process of trying to prove she belonged. You do belong, Leonardo said firmly, but not at the cost of your health and happiness. Easy to say when you are the boss. I was not always the boss, and even when I became the boss, I still thought I had to prove myself every single day. That is how the collapse happened. He reached across the table, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the warmth of his hand. Simone, you are allowed to exist without earning it. You are allowed to take up space without justifying it with your productivity. The words hit her like a physical blow. She realized she was crying, tears streaming down her face despite her best efforts to hold them back. Leonardo handed her a handkerchief, soft linen with his initials embroidered in the corner, and waited patiently while she pulled herself together. "I am sorry," she said, wiping her eyes. "I did not mean to fall apart on you." "You did not fall apart. You responded like a human being to being seen and valued. There is no apology necessary." Leonardo signaled for the check. "Let me take you home. I can take the train." "You could. Or you could accept a ride from someone who would like to make sure you get home safely. No strings, no expectations, just a ride." Simone wanted to refuse. She wanted to maintain her independence to prove she did not need help. But she was so tired of fighting, so tired of doing everything alone. "Okay, thank you." Leonardo's car was a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than she made in 2 years. The driver, a large man in a dark suit, held the door open for her without comment. Simone gave her address and then leaned back against the leather seats, exhausted in a way that went beyond physical. "Same time tomorrow?" Leonardo said as they pulled up in front of her apartment building. Simone looked at him in surprise. "What?" "Dinner, same time tomorrow. Unless you have other plans?" "I have work. Will the world end if you leave at 6 instead of 11? She wanted to say yes, wanted to insist that everything would fall apart without her, but the truth was that she had been working herself to death for 6 months, and the company was fine. Her absence for one evening would change nothing except her own well-being. "I do not even know if I can do that," she admitted. "Leave at a normal time. It feels wrong." "Then try, just for one day. Leave at 6, meet me at Salvatore's and see what happens. If the world ends, I will personally apologize for the inconvenience." Despite everything, Simone smiled. "You are very persistent." "I am Italian. It is in our nature." Leonardo's expression grew serious. "I am not asking for a date, Simone. I am asking you to take one small step toward caring for yourself. Let me help you remember how." She should have said no. She should have maintained her boundaries, kept her distance from this intense, observant man who saw too much and made her feel too much, but she was so tired of being alone in her struggle, so desperate for someone to notice that she was drowning. 6 o'clock, she heard herself say, "but I am paying for my own meal. We can discuss that tomorrow." Leonardo smiled, and it transformed his entire face, making him look younger and less dangerous. "Sleep well, Simone, and eat breakfast tomorrow." "I do not have time for breakfast." "Make time, even if it is just a banana and a yogurt. Promise me." The fact that he cared enough to extract a promise about breakfast of all things made her throat tight again. "I promise." She watched his car pull away, then trudged up to her apartment, a small one-bedroom that she barely spent any time in. The place was clean only because she was never there long enough to make a mess. Her refrigerator contained condiments, a wilted salad from 2 weeks ago, and nothing else. Simone looked at herself in the bathroom mirror, really looked, for the first time in months. Leonardo was right. She looked like a ghost of herself. Her skin was dull, her eyes were shadowed, and her hair needed serious attention. Even her clothes hung wrong, sized for a body she no longer had. She thought about the red dress hanging in her office closet. She thought about Leonardo's words. "When did you stop being enough for yourself?" That night, Simone did something she had not done in months. She went to bed before midnight. She set her alarm for an hour earlier than usual, which still felt obscenely early but would give her time for the breakfast she had promised. And before she fell asleep, she made a list on her phone of things she used to do when she cared about herself. Moisturize my skin, deep condition my hair, take my vitamins, go for a walk just because, call my mother, read a book that is not work-related, wear clothes that fit, eat food that tastes good. Remember that I am a person, not a machine. The list felt both overwhelming and obvious. These were basic acts of self-care that she had abandoned somewhere along the road to proving herself. The next morning, Simone kept her promise. She ate yogurt and a banana while standing at her kitchen counter, and it felt strange and right at the same time. She moisturized her face, something she had not done in weeks. Small steps, but steps nonetheless. At work, she caught herself automatically falling into old patterns. One more report, one more email, one more hour. But then she remembered Leonardo asking if the world would end if she left at 6. She remembered how good it had felt to be seen, to be valued for something other than her productivity. At 5:45, Simone saved her work, shut down her computer, and stood up. Her heart was racing like she was doing something dangerous. Every instinct screamed at her to sit back down, to finish just one more thing. Instead, she put on her coat, the one she had remembered to grab from her office chair, and walked to the elevator. Several co-workers stared at her like she had grown a second head. Simone leaving before dark? Unheard of. She made it to Salvatore's at 6:15, convinced Leonardo would not be there, that last night had been some kind of strange dream, but he was waiting at the same corner table and his face lit up when he saw her. "You came." "I said I would." Simone slid into her seat, aware that her hands were shaking slightly. "This feels weird. Wrong. Like I should be at my desk." "That feeling is lying to you." Leonardo slid a menu across to her. "What sounds good?" They fell into an easy rhythm, talking over food that continued to be the best thing Simone had tasted in months. Leonardo did not pry, did not push. He just asked questions and listened to her answers with complete attention. "Tell me about your family," he said during dessert, a tiramisu that made her close her eyes in bliss. "My parents live in Louisiana. My mom is a nurse. My dad is a teacher. I have 2 younger brothers, both of them more successful than I am, according to my mother." Simone smiled, but there was an edge to it. "They think I work too hard. They do not understand why I'm killing myself for a company that would replace me in a week if I dropped dead at my desk." "They are not wrong." "I know. But it is different for them. They do not have to prove themselves the way I do. They do not walk into rooms where everyone expects them to fail and have to work 3 times as hard just to be taken seriously." The words came out harder than she intended. "Sorry, this is not fair to dump on you." "Stop apologizing for taking up space, Simone. Stop apologizing for having valid experiences and feelings." Leonardo's voice was gentle but firm. "You are right. You do have to work harder than others because the system is broken. But working yourself to death does not fix the system. It just destroys you." "What am I supposed to do then? Just accept that I will never be good enough?" "No. You accept that you are already good enough, and any company that does not see that is not worthy of your time." He leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. "You are brilliant, Simone. Anyone can see that after talking to you for 5 minutes. But brilliance without self-care is not sustainable. You will burn out, and then what? Then you have nothing, not even yourself." His words echoed in her head as they walked out of the restaurant an hour later. Leonardo offered her a ride home again, and again she accepted, telling herself it was just practical and not because she enjoyed his company. "Same time tomorrow?" he asked as they pulled up to her building. "Is this going to be a thing now? You feeding me every night?" "Would that be so terrible?" Leonardo's smile was soft. "I told you, I recognize someone who needs help remembering how to care for themselves. I am not trying to save you, Simone. I'm just reminding you that you are worth saving." "And what do you get out of this?" "The satisfaction of seeing someone rediscover their own worth. That is enough." Simone wanted to argue, wanted to question his motives, wanted to maintain her defensive walls. But she was too tired to fight, and honestly, she did not want to. For the first time in months, someone was showing her kindness without expecting anything in return. "Tomorrow," she agreed, "but you have to let me pay for at least 1 meal." "We will see." The pattern continued for the next week. Simone would leave work at 6, meet Leonardo at Salvatore's, and spend 2 hours talking and eating and slowly remembering what it felt like to be human. He never pushed for more than dinner, never made her feel uncomfortable, never demanded explanations for her walls. But with each passing evening, Simone felt something shifting inside her. She started eating breakfast every day. She started taking her lunch breaks instead of working through them. She even went to bed before midnight most nights, and the extra sleep made her realize how foggy her brain had been running on 4 hours a night. 2 weeks into their dinners, Simone brought the red dress from her office closet to her apartment. She did not try it on, just hung it on the outside of her bedroom closet where she could see it every morning, a reminder of who she used to be and who she wanted to become again. "You look different," Leonardo observed one evening as they shared a bottle of wine. "Lighter somehow." "I feel different. Less like I am drowning." Simone took a sip of her wine, gathering courage. "I talked to my boss today, told him I would not be available after 6 unless it was a genuine emergency. He looked at me like I had grown 3 heads, but he agreed." Pride shone in Leonardo's eyes. "How did it feel?" "Terrifying. Exhilarating. Like I was reclaiming a piece of myself." She paused. "I have you to thank for that." "No, you did that yourself. I just reminded you that you could. Why, though? Why me? You must have dozens of people in your life. Why spend your evenings with someone you barely know? Leonardo was quiet for a long moment, swirling the wine in his glass. When he spoke, his voice was lower, more intimate. The night I met you, I had just come from a very difficult meeting, the kind that reminds you how cutthroat this business can be. I was tired and cynical and questioning why I do what I do. He looked up at her, his dark eyes catching the candlelight. And then I saw you through that window, holding that red dress with such sadness in your eyes. Something about it struck me. Here was someone who was disappearing under the weight of the world's expectations, and no one was noticing. No one was helping. So you decided to help me? Just like that? Is it so strange to want to do something good without expecting anything in return? Leonardo's smile was slightly sad. My world is full of transactions, Simone. Everything is a deal, a negotiation, a power play. But with you, it could just be simple. I could just be someone who cares that you eat dinner and get enough sleep and remember that you matter. Simone felt her heart clench. You barely know me. I know enough. I know you are kind even when you are exhausted. I know you are brilliant at your job, but it does not define you. I know you used to dream bigger than spreadsheets and late nights at the office. I know you deserve to have those dreams back. And what do you dream about, Leonardo Castellano? He looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his expression. Lately, I dream about the moment you try on that red dress again and it fits. Not because your body has changed back to what it was, but because you have changed back to who you were. Confident, vibrant, alive. The words hung between them, charged with something more than simple kindness. Simone felt her breath catch, felt the air grow thick with possibility. That is a very specific dream, she said softly. I am a very specific man. Leonardo reached across the table, his hand stopping just short of touching hers. May I tell you what else I see when I look at you? I am not sure I am ready for more brutal honesty. It is not brutal. It is simply true. He waited until she nodded before continuing. I see someone who makes me laugh, someone who challenges me to be better, someone whose company I genuinely enjoy, which is rare in my world. I see someone I want to keep knowing, keep feeding, keep watching, as she remembers how extraordinary she is. Simone's heart was racing now, her palms slightly damp. Leonardo, I am not asking for anything you are not ready to give. I am simply telling you that these dinners, they are not a burden or an obligation for me. They are the best part of my day. Mine too, she admitted quietly. That might be pathetic, but it is true. Coming here, talking to you, it has become the thing that gets me through the workday. You make me feel seen in a way I have not felt in so long. That is not pathetic, Cara. That is human. The endearment spoken in Italian with such warmth made her shiver. They sat in charged silence for a moment, the restaurant bustling around them but feeling very far away. I should probably tell you something, Leonardo said eventually. About who I am and what I do. Simone's stomach dropped. You are married, are not you? Of course you are married. This has been too good to be true. I am not married. I have never been married. But my business... He paused, choosing his words carefully. It is more complicated than I initially let on. More dangerous. What do you mean, dangerous? Leonardo looked around the restaurant, a brief flash of calculation in his eyes. When he looked back at her, his expression was serious. I work in legitimate business mostly. Import-export, real estate, investments. But I also have connections to some less legitimate enterprises. Family connections that go back generations. Understanding dawned slowly. You are telling me you are involved with organized crime. I am telling you that my family has a complicated history, and I have spent the last decade trying to make our business legitimate without completely severing ties that go back to my grandfather. It is a delicate balance, and it is not always clean. Simone should have felt afraid. She should have stood up and walked away from this dangerous, complicated man who had just admitted to having criminal connections. But instead, she felt strangely calm. Are you telling me this because you think it will scare me off? Or because you think I deserve to know who I'm spending time with? Both, perhaps. You should know what you are getting into if we continue these dinners. If we continue getting closer. Leonardo's voice was steady, but his eyes betrayed his tension. I will never lie to you, Simone. Never hide who I am or what my world entails. You deserve complete honesty. Even knowing it might drive me away? Especially knowing it might drive you away. I will not trap you with false pretenses. Simone thought about it, really thought about it. Leonardo had shown her nothing but respect and kindness. He had helped her remember her own worth without asking for anything in return. Yes, he had connections to organized crime, but he had also been working to legitimize his family business. He was complicated, not evil. I have questions, she said finally. Relief flashed across Leonardo's face. Ask them. All of them. Have you ever hurt anyone? I have made decisions that hurt people, yes. Business decisions that cost people their livelihoods or their money. I am not proud of all of them, but I have made them. He held her gaze. I have never physically harmed anyone who did not try to harm me or my people first. I do not deal in drugs or human trafficking or anything that exploits the vulnerable. Those are lines I will not cross, family history or not. What about the law? Are you a criminal? In the eyes of the law? Probably, though nothing has ever been proven in court. I bend rules, I use connections, I operate in gray areas. But I'm not a monster, Simone. I am just a man trying to honor his family while building something better. She believed him. Maybe that made her naive, but she believed the honesty in his eyes, the tension in his shoulders as he waited for her judgment. Why tell me now? We have been having dinner for 2 weeks. You could have kept this hidden. Because 2 weeks ago, you were a stranger who needed help. Now you are someone I care about, someone whose opinion matters to me, someone who deserves to make an informed choice about whether she wants me in her life. Leonardo's voice dropped. I could not keep lying by omission, not to you. And if I walk away right now, if I thank you for the dinners and say goodbye? Pain flickered across his features. Then I will accept that and hope you continue to take care of yourself. Simone sat with that for a moment with the knowledge that this man who had helped her so much was genuinely prepared to let her go if she chose. No guilt, no manipulation, just acceptance of her autonomy. I do not think I want to walk away, she said slowly. But I need time to process this, to think about what it means. Of course, take all the time you need. And I have one condition if we keep having these dinners. Name it. Complete honesty, always. If something happens in your world that I should know about, you tell me. No protecting me from the truth because you think I cannot handle it. You have my word. They finished dinner in a slightly subdued but not uncomfortable silence. Leonardo drove her home, and when they arrived, he did not get out of the car, giving her space to process. Simone, he called as she opened her door. She turned back. Thank you for hearing me out. For not running immediately. Thank you for telling me the truth. That could not have been easy. It was one of the hardest things I have done in a long time, but you are worth the risk. She thought about that all night, lying in bed staring at the red dress hanging on her closet door. Leonardo was dangerous, complicated, tied to a world she knew nothing about, but he was also kind, honest, and had helped her remember her own worth. The next day at work, Simone found herself distracted for the first time in months. Not by work, but by thoughts of Leonardo, by questions about his world, his choices, his life, by wondering if she was making a terrible mistake or the best decision of her life. She left at 6 as usual, but instead of heading to Salvatore's, she sent Leonardo a text. Can you meet me at my place instead? I want to talk without an audience. His response came immediately. Of course. What is your address again? She gave it to him, then spent 20 minutes frantically tidying her apartment and wondering what she was doing. But when Leonardo arrived looking less polished than usual in jeans and a sweater, all her anxiety melted away. I have been thinking about what you told me, she said, gesturing for him to sit on her couch. About your family, your business, all of it. And I am not going to pretend I am not concerned, or that this does not complicate things, because it does. Simone sat down across from him, needing the distance to think clearly. But I'm also not going to run away from the first honest, real connection I have had in years just because it is complicated. Hope lit up Leonardo's face. You mean that? I mean that I want to keep getting to know you. The real you, complicated history and all. I want to understand your world, even if it scares me. Because you took the time to understand mine, and you helped me when no one else noticed I was drowning. Simone. Her name was a prayer on his lips. But I need boundaries. I need to know that you will keep me safe, that you will not pull me into anything dangerous without my explicit consent. I need to know that my choice to be in your life does not mean I give up my autonomy or my safety. You have my word. On everything I hold sacred, you have my word. Leonardo stood up, crossing to where she sat, but stopping a respectful distance away. You will always have a choice. Always have your own life, your own career, your own decisions. I will never take that from you. Okay? Simone stood up as well, closing the distance between them. Okay, then let us keep doing this. Let us keep having dinners and talking and getting to know each other. Let us see where this goes. Are you certain? Because once you are in my world, even peripherally, there is no completely going back. I am certain that I want to try. That has to be enough for now. Leonardo reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face with one hand. His touch was warm and gentle, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. You are extraordinary, do you know that? Braver than you give yourself credit for. I am terrified. That is what makes it brave. He kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. It was the kind of kiss that felt like a beginning, like a choice, like two people deciding to risk something precious because it might be worth it. When they pulled apart, Simone was smiling despite her fears. So what now? Now I take you to dinner, but this time you pick the place. Not Italian? I am a man of varied tastes. She picked a small soul food restaurant in her neighborhood, the kind of place with checked tablecloths and portions that could feed a family. Leonardo looked slightly out of place in his expensive clothes, but he did not seem to care. He just asked her to order for him and trusted her judgment. As they ate fried chicken and collard greens and macaroni and cheese, Simone felt something settle inside her. This was not just about Leonardo saving her from herself anymore. This was about two people choosing to see each other, complicated histories and all. Tell me about your family, she said. The real story, not the sanitized version. Leonardo took a breath, then began to speak. He told her about his grandfather, who had been part of the original Italian Mafia that came to America in the 1920s. About his father, who had tried to legitimize the family business but never quite succeeded. About the expectations placed on Leonardo as the only son, the pressure to honor tradition while building something new. I spent my 20s trying to prove I could be as ruthless as my grandfather, he admitted. I made choices I'm not proud of. Hurt people who did not deserve it. Built a reputation for being cold and calculating. What changed? I turned 30 and realized I was becoming exactly what I had always hated. So I started pulling back, focusing on legitimate business, trying to build something I could be proud of. It has been 4 years of careful negotiations, strategic moves, and walking a very fine line. Do you regret it? Trying to go legitimate? Never. But it is lonely. Most people in my world do not understand why I would give up power and influence for something as abstract as morality. And most people in the legitimate world want nothing to do with me once they know my history. Leonardo met her eyes. Until you. I'm still deciding if I'm brave or stupid. You are brave. Definitely brave. They talked long after the food was gone, the restaurant staff too polite to rush them out even though closing time had passed. Leonardo told her about his mother who had died when he was 15, about his love of classical music and terrible action movies, about the fact that he could not cook to save his life but made excellent coffee. Simone shared pieces of herself too, her love of old jazz records, her secret dream of writing a novel someday, her complicated relationship with her family who loved her but did not understand her. The more they talked, the more she realized how much they had in common despite their vastly different worlds. I want to show you something, she said as they finally left the restaurant, but you have to promise not to laugh. I promise nothing. She led him back to her apartment and into her bedroom, feeling suddenly vulnerable. The red dress hung on the outside of her closet, a splash of vibrant color in her neutral-toned room. You kept it, Leonardo said softly. I kept it, as a reminder of who I used to be and who I want to become again. Simone touched the fabric gently. I tried it on last night. It still does not fit right, but it is closer than it was 3 weeks ago. May I tell you something? Always. That dress is just fabric. It does not define you or measure your worth, but the fact that you are taking care of yourself enough that your body is healing, that your spirit is coming back, that is everything. Leonardo stepped closer, his hands coming to rest on her shoulders. I do not care if you ever fit into that dress again, Simone. I care that you know you are enough exactly as you are. Tears pricked at her eyes. How do you always know exactly what I need to hear? Because I have been where you are. Because I remember what it feels like to equate my worth with external measures of success. Because I care about you, and when you care about someone, you pay attention. She kissed him again, longer this time, deeper. Leonardo's arms came around her, pulling her close, but not crushing her. It was the kind of embrace that felt like safety and desire and promise all at once. Stay, she whispered against his lips. Not for... just stay. Talk to me until I fall asleep. Help me remember that I am allowed to rest. I would be honored. They ended up on her couch, Simone curled against Leonardo's side, his arm around her shoulders. He told her stories about Italy, about the villa where he grew up, about summers spent learning to make wine with his uncle. His voice was low and soothing, and for the first time in months, Simone felt completely at peace. She fell asleep there, safe and warm and cared for. When she woke up in the morning, there was a note on her coffee table. Had to leave for an early meeting. Breakfast is in your kitchen. Eat it all. Sleep was good on you. L. In her kitchen, she found fresh fruit, yogurt, granola, and orange juice arranged on her counter. Simone smiled, feeling something warm and precious unfold in her chest. This man, this dangerous, complicated, impossible man, cared enough to make sure she ate breakfast. The next few weeks passed in a blur of dinners and late-night conversations and slowly learning to trust again. Leonardo introduced her to his world carefully, never overwhelming her but never hiding from her either. She met his business associates, some legitimate and some decidedly not. She learned to navigate the careful politics of his social circle, and he entered hers, meeting her coworkers at a company happy hour and charming them effortlessly. Her boss actually looked intimidated by Leonardo, which Simone found deeply satisfying. No one questioned her anymore when she left at 6. No one sent her emails after hours and expected immediate responses. Your boyfriend is terrifying, her cubicle mate whispered one day. In a hot way, but still terrifying. Simone smiled. He is complicated. Girl, complicated does not begin to cover it. But he looks at you like you hung the moon, so I approve. The transformation did not happen overnight. It happened in small moments, tiny victories that built on each other like compound interest. Week 3 brought the first major challenge. Simone's boss called an emergency meeting that ran until 9 in the evening. Old habits screamed at her to stay, to prove her dedication, to show she was indispensable. But she thought about Leonardo's words, about her own worth not being tied to her availability. At 6:15, she stood up in the middle of the meeting. I apologize, but I have a prior commitment. Emily can update me tomorrow on whatever decisions are made. Her voice shook slightly, but she maintained eye contact with her boss until he nodded, clearly displeased but unable to argue. Her hands trembled as she walked to the elevator. Part of her expected to be fired, to have thrown away her career for the sake of dinner with a man she had known less than a month. But when she arrived at Salvatore's, Leonardo took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. You did it, he murmured into her hair. You chose yourself. I am terrified I just ruined my career. Your career will survive, and if it does not, any company that fires you for having boundaries is not worthy of your talent. He pulled back to look at her. How do you feel? Simone took inventory of her emotions. Fear, yes. Anxiety, definitely. But underneath all that, something else. Something that felt like freedom. Proud, she admitted. Scared, but proud. Good. That is exactly right. The next day, nothing catastrophic happened. Her boss was cold for a few days, but the project moved forward without her late-night presence. The world did not end because she left at a reasonable hour. That realization was both liberating and infuriating. How much of her health had she sacrificed for deadlines that were not actually life or death? Week 4 brought a different kind of challenge. Simone's mother called, full of concern after not hearing from her daughter in over a month. They fell into old patterns quickly, her mother criticizing her choices, Simone defending herself until both were angry and hurt. You are working yourself to death for white people who do not care about you, her mother said bluntly. When are you going to find a nice man and settle down? Give me some grandbabies? Maybe I am seeing someone, Simone snapped before she could stop herself. The ensuing interrogation was exhausting. What does he do? Where is he from? What church does his family attend? Simone found herself deflecting, not ready to explain Leonardo's complicated world to her mother, who barely understood her own career choices. That evening at dinner, she was quiet, picking at her food. Leonardo noticed immediately. Talk to me. My mother called. It did not go well. What happened? Simone told him about the conversation, about her mother's disappointment, about the impossible expectations of being a successful Black woman who was supposed to have it all figured out by 30. Leonardo listened without interrupting, his expression thoughtful. Do you want to tell her about me? He asked when she finished. I do not know. My world and your world, they do not exactly overlap. My mother is a church-going nurse from Louisiana. You are... She trailed off, not sure how to finish. An Italian man with a complicated past and questionable business connections? Leonardo's tone was light, but his eyes were serious. I understand if keeping me separate from your family is easier. It is not about easy. It is about not knowing how to bridge those worlds. My family would not understand you. They would judge without knowing you. And I am not ready to deal with that judgment when I am still figuring out what we are. Fair enough. But Simone, when you are ready, I will meet them. I will let your mother interrogate me and your father give me the protective father speech. I will sit through church services and family dinners and whatever else is required, because you are worth it. His words made her throat tight. You would really do that? Even knowing my family would probably not approve? I have spent my life dealing with people who do not approve of me. What is a few more? Leonardo reached across the table to take her hand. But I will not push. This moves at your pace, always. Week 5 brought progress in unexpected ways. Simone's best friend from college, Asha, visited Chicago for a conference. They met for lunch, the first time Simone had taken a full lunch break in months. Girl, what happened to you? Asha asked, studying her face. You look different. Good different. I have been taking better care of myself. This is more than moisturizer and sleep. You are glowing. There is a man, is not there? Simone found herself smiling despite her attempt to play it cool. Maybe. Tell me everything, and I mean everything. So she did. She told Asha about Leonardo, about the dinners and conversations and the slow rediscovery of herself. She even told her about his family connections, trusting Asha's judgment and discretion. So let me get this straight, Asha said when she finished. This gorgeous, wealthy Italian man saw you at your lowest point, decided to help you remember your worth, and he is also maybe connected to organized crime? Girl, that is either the best romance novel plot I have ever heard, or a true crime documentary waiting to happen. I know it sounds crazy. Crazy? It sounds like a fever dream, but... Asha leaned forward, her expression serious. You look happier than I have seen you in years. More alive. Like the Simone I remember from college before corporate America tried to grind you into dust. So, as your best friend, I am going to say this. Be careful, but do not be afraid to be happy. What if I am making a huge mistake? What if you are not? What if this complicated, dangerous, impossible man is exactly what you need right now? Asha smiled. Love is not supposed to be safe, Sim. It is supposed to be real. That evening, Simone told Leonardo about her lunch with Asha. She thinks I might be crazy, but she supports me anyway. Good friends do that. Challenge us when we need it, support us even when they are worried. Leonardo poured them both more wine. My friend Marco thinks I have lost my mind, for the record. Your business partner, Marco? The same. He says I am risking everything for a woman I have known less than 2 months, that my enemies will see you as a weakness to exploit. Simone's stomach dropped. Maybe he is right. Maybe I am putting you in danger. No, you are not putting me in danger. My choices, my past, my family history, those things put me in danger. You make me want to be better than my history. You make the risk worthwhile. Leonardo's voice was firm. Marco means well, but he is wrong. You are not my weakness. You are my strength. That is very romantic, but it does not change the fact that I could become a target. Which is why I have taken precautions. Security that you do not see, but that is always there. People I trust watching from a distance. I will not let anything happen to you, Simone. That is a promise I intend to keep. She wanted to argue, wanted to insist that she did not need protecting. But the truth was that entering Leonardo's world did come with risks, and pretending otherwise was naive. Instead, she asked, what kind of precautions? Leonardo explained the security measures he had put in place, a detail that followed her at a distance, never intrusive but always aware. Background checks on anyone new in her life. Upgraded security in her building that looked normal but was military grade. It should have felt invasive, but instead it felt like being valued enough to protect. "I know this is a lot," Leonardo said carefully. "If it is too much, if you want to walk away, I will understand. Your safety and comfort matter more than my feelings. I do not want to walk away, but I do want to understand the reality of your world. No more protecting me from the truth because you think I cannot handle it." Agreed. Complete honesty, even when it is uncomfortable. Week 6 brought that uncomfortable honesty. Leonardo came to dinner tense, his jaw tight with stress. Simone knew something was wrong immediately. "What happened?" "Business complication. Nothing that affects you directly, but it might mean I'm less available for the next few days." He ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of frustration. "A shipment went missing. Either it was stolen by a rival family or someone in my organization is stealing from me. Either way, it needs to be handled." "What kind of shipment?" Leonardo hesitated, then remembered his promise of honesty. "Art. Legitimate art being imported from Italy for sale to collectors. Worth about $3 million. If it was stolen externally, it is an act of war. If it was stolen internally, it is betrayal. Both require my immediate attention." "What will you do?" "Ask questions, make calls, find out who is responsible, and then—" He trailed off, his expression going cold in a way Simone had never seen before. "And then what, Leonardo?" "And then I will handle it, which might mean things you do not want to know about." Simone thought about that, about what handling it might mean in his world. Violence almost certainly, maybe worse. She should have been horrified, should have run away from this man who casually discussed consequences for betrayal, but she had promised to know him fully, complicated darkness and all. "Will you tell me what happens after you handle it?" "Do you really want to know?" "I want honesty, even when it is ugly." Leonardo studied her for a long moment. "The missing art was recovered today. It was an external theft by a rival family trying to test our defenses. I met with their representative this afternoon. We came to an understanding." "What kind of understanding?" "The kind where they return what they took, pay restitution for the inconvenience, and think very carefully before testing me again." His voice was cold, emotionless in a way that sent chills down her spine. "No one died, if that is what you are asking. But people were hurt. People who made the choice to steal from me knowing the consequences." Simone absorbed that, sitting with the discomfort of it. This was who Leonardo was, this man who could be tender with her but ruthless with his enemies. Both things were true at once. "Thank you for telling me," she said finally. "Are you afraid of me now?" "A little. But I'm also grateful that you are honest about who you are instead of pretending to be someone you are not." She met his eyes. "I do not love violence, Leonardo. I do not condone it. But I understand that your world operates by different rules than mine. My world is brutal, unforgiving, built on power and respect and consequences. I am trying to change it, to make it less violent, but I cannot snap my fingers and erase decades of tradition." "I know, and I am not asking you to defend your choices to me. I am just asking you to keep being honest about them." They sat in heavy silence for a while, the weight of reality settling between them. This was not a fairy tale. This was two complicated people trying to build something real in spite of their very different worlds. "I should go," Leonardo said eventually. "Give you space to think about whether this is really what you want." "Stay." Simone's voice was firm. "I knew who you were when I chose this. I am not running away at the first sign of discomfort. You are braver than you think. Or I am a fool in love with a dangerous man." The words hung in the air between them. It was the first time either of them had used the word love, and Simone had not meant to say it. But now that it was out there, she could not take it back, did not want to take it back. "Say that again," Leonardo demanded, his voice rough. "I am a fool in love with a dangerous man." He kissed her then, hard and desperate, like he was trying to pour everything he felt into that single moment. When they finally pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "I love you too," he said against her lips. "So much it terrifies me." Week 7 brought lighter moments. Leonardo took her to a concert at Symphony Hall, classical music that made her feel sophisticated and cultured. He held her hand in the dark theater, his thumb tracing patterns on her wrist, and she felt utterly content. Afterward, they walked through Millennium Park despite the November cold. Leonardo wrapped her in his coat when she shivered, and they took silly selfies in front of the bean. For a few hours they were just a couple in love, with no complications or dangerous pasts. I could get used to this, Simone said, leaning against his chest as they watched the city lights reflect off the sculpture. Normal dates? Regular couple activities? Yes, all of it. Being happy without constantly waiting for the other shoe to drop. Leonardo turned her to face him, his hands cupping her face. Then let us make more moments like this. Let us build a life that is more than just complications and challenges. Let us actually be happy together. I want that. So much. They made love that night for the second time, slower than the first, learning each other's bodies with patient attention. Leonardo worshipped every inch of her skin, telling her in Italian how beautiful she was, how precious, how valued. Simone let herself be vulnerable with him, let herself feel loved and desired and seen. Week 8 brought the meeting Simone had been dreading. Leonardo's uncle Enzo was in town from Italy, and Leonardo wanted them to meet. She spent an hour trying on different outfits, unsure how to dress to meet a man who was essentially Italian Mafia royalty. "You look beautiful," Leonardo assured her when he picked her up. "Enzo will love you. Or he will think I am completely unsuitable for his nephew. Then that is his problem, not yours." The restaurant Leonardo chose was elegant but not stuffy, with private rooms for important conversations. Enzo Castellano was in his mid-60s, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, dressed in an impeccable suit. He stood when they entered, his gaze assessing Simone in seconds. "Signorina Baptiste," he said, his accent thicker than Leonardo's. "My nephew has told me much about you. All good things, I assure you." "Mr. Castellano, it is a pleasure to meet you." "Please call me Enzo. Any woman who can make Leonardo smile the way he has been smiling deserves informal address." The dinner was surprisingly pleasant. Enzo asked intelligent questions about her work, her family, her goals. He told stories about Leonardo as a boy, about his mother, about the family history. But underneath the pleasant conversation, Simone could feel him evaluating her, weighing whether she was strong enough for his nephew's dangerous world. "You know what Leonardo does, yes?" Enzo asked over dessert, his directness startling after an hour of polite conversation. "You understand the family he comes from?" "I do." "And you are not afraid?" "I am terrified, but I love him anyway." Enzo studied her for a long moment, then smiled. "Good. Fear keeps you alert. Love keeps you loyal. You will need both in this family." He turned to Leonardo. "You chose well, Nipote. She has steel in her spine." The approval in his voice was unmistakable. Leonardo's hand tightened on Simone's under the table, his relief palpable. After Enzo left, Leonardo pulled Simone into his arms. "Thank you. I know that was difficult." "Actually, it was not as bad as I feared. Your uncle is intimidating, but he was kind. He liked you, which means the rest of the family will accept you. That matters more than you know in my world." 1 month after their first dinner, Simone stood in her bedroom staring at the red dress. She had been taking care of herself consistently now, eating 3 meals a day, sleeping 7 hours a night, actually using her vacation days. Her skin glowed, her hair was healthy and styled, and she felt more like herself than she had in over a year. On impulse, she took the dress off the hanger and slipped it on. The zipper slid up easily. The fit was perfect, hugging her curves in all the right places. She looked in the mirror and barely recognized the confident, vibrant woman staring back. She took a picture and sent it to Leonardo. "It fits." His response came within seconds. "You are stunning. Can I see in person?" She texted him her address, even though he already knew it. 20 minutes later, there was a knock on her door. Simone opened it to find Leonardo standing there with a bouquet of deep red roses, his eyes going wide when he saw her. "Bellissima," he breathed. "Absolutely beautiful." "The dress fits," she said unnecessarily. "I see that. But that is not what makes you beautiful, Simone. You are radiant because you are taking care of yourself, because you remember that you matter. The dress is just a bonus." She pulled him inside, suddenly emotional. "I did not think I would get here. 1 month ago, I did not think I would ever feel like myself again. But you did. You fought for yourself. I just reminded you how. You did more than that. You saw me when I was invisible. You cared when no one else noticed. You helped me remember that I am allowed to exist without earning it." Simone cupped his face in her hands. "You saved me, Leonardo. Not in some dramatic rescue way, but in the way that actually matters. You reminded me how to save myself. You did the work, Kara. All I did was bear witness. Then bear witness to this. She kissed him with all the gratitude and affection and growing love she felt. I am choosing you. Your complicated, dangerous, impossible world. I am choosing us, whatever that looks like. Leonardo pulled back just enough to look in her eyes. Are you certain? Because my world is dangerous, Simone. There will be challenges and threats and moments of fear. I will protect you with everything I have, but I cannot promise it will always be safe. I am not asking for safe. I am asking for honest, for real, for someone who sees me and values me and helps me be the best version of myself. She smiled. Besides, you promised complete honesty. So tell me, do you want this too? Do you want me in your complicated, dangerous, impossible life? More than I have wanted anything in a very long time. His voice was rough with emotion. You make me better, Simone. You challenge me to be the man I am trying to become, not the man my family history says I should be. You see past all the darkness to something good underneath. Then we are doing this. We are choosing each other, complications and all. They sealed the choice with a kiss that quickly deepened into something more. Simone felt heat unfurl in her belly as Leonardo's hands skimmed down her sides, careful of her dress but clearly wanting more. Tell me if this is too fast, he murmured against her neck. Tell me if you need me to slow down. I do not want slow. I want you. All of you. She tugged at his shirt. Take me to bed, Leonardo. What followed was tender and passionate and everything. Simone had been too exhausted and depleted to even want for the past year. Leonardo worshipped her body like it was sacred, taking his time to learn what made her gasp and moan. He was demanding but patient, intense but gentle, everything she needed and more than she had dared to hope for. Afterwards, as they lay tangled together in her sheets, Leonardo traced patterns on her skin with gentle fingers. Do you know what I think? He asked softly. What? I think that dress never stopped fitting. I think you just forgot how to see yourself clearly. You were always this beautiful, this vibrant, this strong. You just needed someone to remind you. Simone felt tears prick at her eyes. Thank you for seeing me, for caring, for not giving up when I had given up on myself. I will never give up on you, Simone Baptiste. That is a promise I can keep. They fell asleep like that, wrapped around each other, two complicated people who had found something simple and precious in the midst of their chaotic worlds. And in the morning, when Simone woke to Leonardo making coffee in her kitchen, she felt something she had not felt in over a year. Hope. The next few months were not perfect. Leonardo's world was as complicated and dangerous as promised. There were late-night phone calls and tense meetings, and moments when Simone questioned what she had gotten herself into. But there were also moments of profound connection, of feeling seen and valued and cherished in ways she had never experienced before. She continued to take care of herself, not because Leonardo expected it, but because she had remembered why it mattered. She ate 3 meals a day and slept enough and took time for things that brought her joy. Her work performance actually improved once she stopped sacrificing her humanity for productivity. And Leonardo? He continued his slow, careful work of legitimizing his family business. It was not easy, and there were setbacks and challenges, but having Simone in his life gave him something to fight for beyond abstract principles. She represented the possibility of a future that was not defined by his past. 6 months after their first meeting on that train platform, Leonardo took Simone to Italy. They visited his family villa in Tuscany, a beautiful, sprawling property surrounded by vineyards. His extended family was curious but welcoming, clearly charmed by this confident black woman who did not intimidate easily. You are good for him, his Uncle Enzo said to her one evening over wine. Leonardo has been trying to change our family business for years, but it is harder to do it alone. With you, he has something worth changing for. I cannot take credit for his choices. He is doing the work himself. But he is doing it for you, for the life he wants with you. Enzo smiled. That is worth more than you know. On their last night in Italy, Leonardo took Simone to a small chapel on the villa grounds. My mother is buried here, he said, quietly. I come here when I need to remember who I am beyond the business, beyond the family expectations. Thank you for bringing me here. I wanted you to know all of me, the good and the bad and everything in between. Leonardo took her hands in his. I love you, Simone. I think I have loved you since that first night when you were shivering on a train platform and still had the strength to question a stranger offering coffee. Simone felt her heart swell. I love you too. You saved me in the way that matters most. You helped me save myself. And you saved me from becoming someone I did not want to be. You gave me a reason to be better. They stood there in the fading Italian sunlight, two people from different worlds who had found something extraordinary in each other. It would not always be easy. There would be challenges and dangers and moments of doubt, but they had chosen each other fully and completely, and that made all the difference. A year after that first dinner at Salvatore's, Simone stood in her office holding the red dress. She had been promoted to Director of Financial Analysis, a position that came with actual work-life balance and respect from her colleagues. She was happy, healthy, thriving in ways she had not thought possible. Leonardo had successfully transitioned most of his business interests to legitimate enterprises, though he still maintained careful connections to his family history. He had become a respected businessman in Chicago, known for his integrity as much as his success. And their relationship? It had grown into something solid and real and precious. They still had dinner together most nights, though now they alternated between Salvatore's and new restaurants they discovered together. They had learned each other's rhythms and needs and fears. They had built a life together that honored both their individualities and their partnership. You keeping that dress as a trophy? Leonardo asked from her office doorway. Simone smiled. I thought I would donate it, actually. Let someone else have their moment in a red dress. Very generous. I do not need it anymore. I do not need external proof that I am taking care of myself. I just know that I am. She turned to face him fully. I know my worth now, not because of my job title or my productivity or whether a dress fits, just because I exist, and that is enough. Leonardo crossed the room and pulled her into his arms. You have always been enough, Cara. Always. I know that now. Thanks to you. Thanks to you choosing to remember. I just helped. They kissed there in her office, surrounded by the evidence of her success, but that success no longer defined her. She was so much more than her work, more than her achievements, more than any external measure of worth. She was Simone Baptiste, a woman who had lost herself and found her way back, who had been saved by remembering how to save herself, who had chosen to love and be loved by a complicated, dangerous, impossible man who saw her clearly and valued her completely. The red dress had been a symbol of what she had lost, but she did not need symbols anymore. She had herself back, and she had Leonardo, and she had a life that was full and rich and real. That was more than enough. That was everything. Later that evening, as they shared wine and conversation at their favorite corner table in Salvatore's, Simone thought about the woman she had been a year ago. Exhausted, depleted, disappearing under the weight of impossible expectations. She barely recognized that version of herself now. What are you thinking about? Leonardo asked, always attentive to her moods. About how far I have come. About how different everything is now. Better different or just different? So much better? I have myself back. I have you. I have a life I actually want to live instead of just surviving. Simone reached across the table to take his hand. I have never thanked you properly for that night on the train platform, for seeing me when I was invisible. You have thanked me every day by continuing to choose yourself, by continuing to grow and heal and become more yourself. That is thanks enough. You know what I realized recently? Simone said softly. I thought that dress not fitting anymore was a sign of failure, a symbol of how much I had lost. But maybe it was actually a sign that I needed to change, needed to reassess, needed to remember that I was more than my productivity. A breaking point that became a turning point. Exactly. If I had never stood in front of that closet, never seen how much I had disappeared, I might never have left work at a normal time, might never have been on that train platform, might never have met you. Leonardo raised her hand to his lips and kissed her knuckles. I am very grateful for that dress then, and for your willingness to accept help from a stranger. Some stranger you turned out to be. They laughed together, the sound warm and genuine, two people who had found something real in the midst of their complicated lives. And when they finally left the restaurant hours later, walking hand in hand through Chicago streets that no longer felt quite so cold, Simone felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Complete. Not because Leonardo completed her, but because she had finally completed herself. The dress fitting again had been a milestone, yes, But the real victory was remembering that she was worth caring for with or without external validation. She was enough simply because she was. And that was the real ending, the real beginning. Not the dress fitting or the relationship working out, but Simone remembering her own value and choosing every single day to honor it. Leonardo had not saved her. He had simply reminded her that she was worth saving, and then she had done the work herself. That was the greatest gift anyone had ever given her, and it was one she would carry forward for the rest of her life. As they drove home through the city lights, Simone looked over at the man who had seen her at her lowest and helped her find her way back to herself. She thought about the future they were building together, complicated and uncertain but undeniably real. "I love you," she said simply. Leonardo glanced over at her, his dark eyes warm. "I love you too, Cara. Always." And in that moment, Simone knew with absolute certainty that she had found something precious. Not just love, though there was plenty of that, but something deeper, more fundamental. She had found herself again, and she had found someone who valued that self as much as she was learning to. The red dress was gone now, donated to someone who needed their own symbol of hope and transformation. But Simone did not need symbols anymore. She carried her worth inside her, unshakable and real, a foundation that no amount of work, stress, or external pressure could erode. She was enough. She had always been enough. She had just needed to remember how to see it. And that, more than any dress or romance or happy ending, was the true victory of her story.